Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I'm very excited to be with you today. We have an exciting, I guess we want to say an extension of the fitness fam. We certainly crossed paths through fitness, so I'm always appreciative of that. But we've got Justin Powell. He is the executive director for Youthlinc out in Utah, and we're going to unpack their mission and what they have going on. I had the pleasure of competing on their behalf for the Do More Charity Challenge this past event in 2024, just about a month ago. And so we connected. I'm like, well, we got to get you on the mic and really further share what Youthlinc has going on. We were successful in our fitness endeavors and raised, I believe it was $10,500 for them. So we were excited to support such an incredible cause. And the more I dug in, like I said, I was like, we got to get this going. So before we get to Justin and the mission of, I want to give a special shout out to our supporting and title sponsor, Lux Neuro, offering neurofeedback and counseling where your heart and mind align. For more information about what neurofeedback can do for you, listen to the neurofeedback stories of transformation in the middle of this podcast. Neurofeedback effectively treats everything from insomnia, anxiety, depression, trauma, ADHD, and much more. Optimize your brain today. Check them out. And the one and only Declan James watches. I can never tell if you can see these on our YouTube video or not, but check them out. They're veteran owned and 10% goes back to the Navy SEAL Foundation. They're gorgeous and they're made here in Colorado. Fellow fitness family. Always exciting to support the fitness business family cause. So without further ado, let's jump in. Justin, welcome to Turmeric and Tequila.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yes. Well, we've got a lot to cover today, so I want to jump right in. Justin's been with the program for over 16 years. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, 16 years, and you've done over 16 trips. I'm guessing it's way more than that.
Yeah, I did 3 this summer, so 19 now.
19. Okay. So the overarching explanation of Youthlinc is they are creating lifetime humanitarians in Utah through service locally and abroad. And I'm going to read a little paragraph about what they said about their 2023 initiatives, but it's all about living a life of service. And if you listen to Turmeric and Tequila, that's pretty much the baseline. We have our 2 pillars of community and mental health. And I believe that the answer to both of those things are living a life of service and finding your purpose and your way to contribute in any capacity. So when I was reading about their 2023 initiative, I was like, I got to read this on the air. So this is what they said. 2023 was all about reconnecting. Service, both local and international allowed us to do just that. Through the service year, through this service year, our participants found a place they belong in their own communities and across the world. Service reminds us that in order to grow, develop, and heal, we need to work together. Service facilitates our connections around the world through education, language, dance, art, music, shared experience, stories, tears, laughter, and the love for one another. So amazing things going on. Justin,
Yeah.
before we get into Youthlinc, why don't you give us a little bit about you and your journey? Because I think that the humans are what really make the mission work. So we want to know about you.
Yeah. So I'm Justin, and my journey, especially to Youthlinc, has been a really joyful one. So I started as a volunteer at Youthlinc in 2008. And the big reason I got involved at that point is because I had just gotten married, and my wife had been volunteering with Youthlinc since 1999. And she snuck it into the marriage vows that I had to volunteer at Youthlinc. So she kind of snuck it in there on me, and then I took that seriously. So I started volunteering that same year and fell in love with it. And then I just kind of got addicted to all the connections and the relationships and the having good impact um, and seeing the world and mentoring youth to really find their passions and really know how to tap into the better side of themselves. And just over the course of time, I just became more entrenched as a volunteer until finally a job opportunity came along about a decade ago to run one of our local programs that's based in Salt Lake County in Salt Lake, called Real Life, which is an after-school program for refugee and immigrant K through 12 students. So I left my career. I was a teacher before, and I moved over to run that program. And that kind of morphed into so many other opportunities at Youthlinc. And then I was selected by the board to become the executive director 8 years ago when our founder retired. So and then bim bam boom, here I am.
That's incredible. Well,
Yeah,
first of all, let's give kudos to your wife. I can't believe she snuck it in the vows. Way to do it right at a time where you not only can you not say no, but you're in front of an audience or
I
like,
know, right?
yeah.
Thankfully, I already loved doing service, and I also loved the international aspect of it. So it was an easy yes.
That's amazing. And is she still a part of the organization now? Is she still volunteering?
Yeah, her and I did it together for years and years and years. Then we started having kids, and once the kids started coming, it made it more difficult. So now her involvement's less than it used to be, but she still pops in to do things here and there, because she's the principal of a high school, so she has her own insanity going on with that. But
Sure.
yeah, she still does help with YouthLink things here and there.
That's incredible. Well, you guys are out here just shaping all kinds of young lives and in the mix. You guys are head influencers, more important than Instagram. Let's go.
We're doing our best.
Well, it's a jungle out there. We need you guys doing good things. Well, so for anyone that doesn't know, tell us a little bit more about YouthLink and the programs that you guys have going on. And it's really cool how it started. I was reading the backstory that, the founder had created some funds for her daughter when she graduated high school. She asked her what she wanted to do with the money, and she said, let's take an international trip. And the mom was astounded by how the daughter connected with the people, and it became what YouthLink is today. So I know that was a very quick version. Elaborate on that.
Yeah. Yeah, really how it was founded is such a core value that we still have 25 years later. And the nutshell story is that our founder, her name is Judy Zone. Her daughter wanted to go on a trip for her senior trip, and Judy said, "Well, okay, but we have to go do something kind of where we're interacting with real people, not just being tourists." Not that there's anything wrong with that, but she wanted something deeper. And her daughter had also been volunteering every week, every Sunday morning. She would go to like downtown Salt Lake and serve breakfast to the homeless population under a viaduct. And she was just very like service minded. And so when they got to Kenya and her daughter kept making these connections of issues and structures of poverty they were seeing there and tying it back to what she had been learning for years through observation in Salt Lake, going, wow, wouldn't it be so powerful if I could help students get involved in doing local service and then take them abroad and kind of set a richer context for the power that they have to do good both locally and internationally. And so she was a teacher at a high school at the time, and she thought, oh, I'll just take some students from my school to do this trip where they do local service and then go to Kenya. And that's actually when my wife got involved, who became my wife. She was on that first trip, and then it was just so impactful and powerful. Then students wanted to do it the next year, and she thought, oh, I'll just do it as like a side gig. And then before she knew it, it was getting a lot of demand from other people within the state of Utah saying, hey, I want my kids to do this. And then it just grew from there. So
That's
that
incredible.
core program is what we call the service year, like you kind of referred to in that opening statement. And our mission with our service year program is to create lifetime humanitarians. We're not just a tourism industry agency that takes people abroad to see other countries and how poor they are and pretend that we're helping, but we really exist to help students transform for an entire 9-month period to know that they can get involved all the time, weekly, within their own community and have impact and build the community they want to live in. But we also want to honor that we live in a small world, and why not go connect to the amazing human beings all over this world and do some good? So we marry those two ideas together, and it becomes very motivating for students to do we have a very rigorous program. They have to do 80 hours of local service to qualify. They have to do a monthly meeting. They have to take on committee planning projects. We require a lot. We kind of call ourselves a service school. And then they transform over time. And then we have this exponential amount of good going on when they get home because they're already habituated to doing service all the time.
That's
So
incredible.
that's our main program, the service year.
So tell me, now that's been going on for this long, do a lot of the
Mhm.
kids that participate in this program, do they come back and volunteer and be leaders or counselors or anything like that?
Yes, they do, and that's some part of YouthLink structure kind of is designed to facilitate that. So we've had many, many, many times in the past, many, where they start as a student and then they maybe go on a couple of trips and they come back as alums and they take on some additional leadership. Then they become a mentors, which is what we call like the adult chaperones. And then if they're good at that, then they can apply to be a team leader. And so there are all sorts of ways that they can keep engaging even within the organization, and keep having impact through us. And the other cool thing is we are kind of a brokerage of volunteers too. So when the students have to do their local service, they don't necessarily do it with Youthlinc. They might do it at Primary Children's Hospital or at a local care center or at the Road Home, which is a organization in Salt Lake that supports the homeless population. And if that's where they find their passion is in these other nonprofits and they continue to volunteer with other nonprofits, that's a win for us too. Sure, they're not with us anymore on our rosters, but hey, we like help them get on the path to becoming an amazing volunteer for somebody else. And that's our mission. We really want them to find their passion. And so over 25 years, yeah, we've seen a lot of those stories where they morph into lifelong youth linkers. My wife is the most original one. She's been in it for 25 years.
That's incredible. It's such a powerful thing. And we're coming upon an election year, whatever side you sit on or in between or in the middle. I think it's so incredible to go to a space that isn't yours or surroundings that are not familiar and going to see how other people live, survive, and get through life, because it provides this priceless perspective and your ability to relate and hold empathy and space for humans that are completely different than you. I was fortunate to play lacrosse in high school, and then I got recruited to play in college, and it took me from Colorado to Virginia. That's one of the best things I ever did, was get away from my surroundings, not because it was good, bad, or the other, just because it put me in such different space. I was on my own, and I saw how East Coasters lived, and all my teammates, I saw their homes, like there's little things. And then that took me to Japan to compete, and Prague, and it took us to all these different worlds where it was about lacrosse, but we got to see other humans that live completely different than us. And it was this invaluable perspective that I was so thankful for, and continue to become more grateful as I get older and times get a little bit more complicated. So I know what you guys are doing is so
Yeah.
powerful in facilitating leaders and givers and people that are doing big things. I'm really curious, what is, you guys have grown exponentially year after year. What do you guys have, like, big goals in mind or anything like that as, things continue to grow and develop?
Yeah, so some big things that have been brewing the last few years, although the pandemic kind of made it a little trickier for a while, but we're kind of out of that now, is because we work with so many youth and we're like a youth training facility. Plus, I kind of referred to this program called Real Life, which is an after-school program for refugee and immigrant K through 12 students. There's so much demand on YouthLink to expand those services, especially locally, that when you put those two things together, the service year and the real life program, we thought 5, 6 years ago, we need a space and a community center that can be our hub, that kind of can be a community center for the refugee families that are in that area, and be this even more specific training ground for all of our youth volunteers. So we started raising money, a capital campaign, we call it, to build a community center. And long story short, after many ups and downs through a pandemic and sky high building prices and all of those fun things, we actually just purchased a building in May, and it's being renovated. And we're moving next week, actually, into
Wow.
this new space that was kind of a 5-year goal. And so, that's the first very tangible part of the goal. But beyond that tangible building is all of the programming and impacts that we can have once we can then refocus and double down on our focus with our impact. So that will give us the opportunity to have expanded services for the refugee population. Salt Lake, many people may not know this, but Salt Lake is one of the this is where a lot of refugees are resettled in the United States. There's a really strong infrastructure of nonprofits and government agencies that work together to provide a stable environment with a lot of support for refugees being resettled to the United States. And we're part of that solution. We're just one little part of this beautiful network of nonprofits within Salt Lake. And so that's a huge thing. And then we'll just be able to host more service projects and host more trainings and host more retreats and all of those kinds of things to help more and more youth go through our program. So that's a really cool and fun thing that's going on in
Yeah,
Youthlinc right
that's
now.
incredible. How do you
Mhm.
guys fund your situation? Like we're obviously we're competing on your behalf with the Do More Charity Challenge.
Yeah.
And do you guys have any major partners or is it fundraising? Like how do you make this machine run?
To put it into business speak, we have a lot of different revenue streams. That is, that's just smart business, right? You want to
Hmm.
make sure that you're financially strong no matter what happens. Like, hey, we lived through a pandemic. Now we feel like we can live through anything, especially since a big part of our revenue stream is the international trips. So when the any participant goes through a program on the trips, we add a tuition on there to kind of cover our basic costs at the at the office
Hmm.
for that program. And that one is funded like the volunteers do peer-to-peer fundraising and like trying to get their friends and family to donate toward their trip, kind of that traditional, as you can imagine, model. But for the projects that we do internationally, we write grants to foundations. We do big clothing drives in partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters, who then works with Savers, which is like a secondhand store type place where
Okay.
we collect tons of clothes, and then through Big Brothers Big Sisters, they sell it to Savers, and that gives us money to do projects with. Um, our real life program is 100% grant based. We write grants to foundations, corporations, all and personal donations. Um, so we have all sorts of different revenues coming in, but a lot of it is grant writing. A lot of it is peer to peer fundraising. We also run an annual gala every year, a big fundraising dinner. And some people think those are old fashioned, but we love them so much.
Yeah.
They're like a place of community. It's a giant reunion. And then it's a really fun way to raise money that people are maybe going to donate anyway, but they get to do it all in one night.
That's
So,
incredible. Well,
yeah.
and I want to talk more about because you guys have so many moving parts. It's really incredible. But in order for the machine to run, you need the right humans in the mix. I'm really curious, like how you were as a young human. Like, were there signs early on that you were going to be, leading this life of service and involved leading our youth? Were you kind of like a youth leader, or tell us about your young self?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, ever since I was junior high or high school, I loved doing service. I was just naturally drawn to it. And I remember joining the Key Club, which was a service club in my high school, and also just doing service around the neighborhood. Me and one of my friends, when we were in elementary school, used to like bake cookies and drop them off secretly at people's homes and then hide behind their bushes while they did it. Or I remember one time my friend and I saw that there was this elderly couple in our neighborhood, so we saw them drive away one day, and we went and hurried and raked all their leaves up and bagged them and got rid of them before they drove home. And so I know I was a hooligan. I was doing random crazy things,
Random acts
even
of
from a
kindness.
young age. So then as I got older, I remember taking like a aptitude test of what career should you have? And it was like, you should be in services. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's not gonna make me any money.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be a provider. How am I supposed to provide for a family doing that kind of job? And so I really did kind of have this really confusing time of do I follow my passion or do I like, and no offense to corporate America, but or do I sell my soul and join corporate America?
Yeah.
And little did I know over the course of time that actually that's not a choice that you actually have to make. You really can follow your passions and do what matches you, and the universe provides, and you can be financially stable. And so, it took me some time. Thankfully, my wife is really on the same page with me, and so it's been a beautiful journey for both of us to have like a partnership where we really can support each other into doing things that are a little less common for people to pursue. And so did I ever think I'd be running an amazing, awesome local and international nonprofit? I never thought I would be able to. I maybe
Yeah.
had some interloper syndrome going on, but here I am, and it's fantastic, and I'm
Very
surrounded
cool.
by amazing people that make it run. It's not just me by any means. It's a whole community of people. So
Absolutely. You need the village on all capacities
yeah,
to come
do.
through and get by. It's so wild. And I think that's such an important message in this day and age in 2024 and almost 2025 that our young people can do the dream, get clarity on what you want. And I say God, universe, Madonna, whatever you believe, be clear with the universe and have faith that really it sounds cliche, but anything is possible. And that's why we talk about turmeric and tequila, seemingly opposing things can harmoniously coexist. Opportunity is everywhere in this day and age. And you can make money off TikTok or any of these creative ways and find a way to fund whatever it is your mission is
Mhm.
to make it work. And the upside of that is I think when we have more opportunity to find our purpose authentically, that significantly helps our conversation around mental health. And we all get to live in a space where we're purposeful and we can contribute authentically. I think that changes the mental health game. Do you guys talk about mental health? I know you community is everything for you guys, but is the mental health a conversation?
It absolutely is, especially internally within the Youthlinc staff and our really high level volunteers. We know that as students engage in our program and they're doing service every week, we see this all the time. And when we survey our students at the beginning, in the middle, and the end, and we watch them transform, to be a little cliche, sometimes a teenager comes to us, they're kind of me, and they're inward focused, and which is completely developmentally appropriate. So I'm not saying that in any negative way. But as we give them opportunity to look outside themselves and help them understand that, oh, there's more to life than the inward focus, there can also be this beautiful space of outward focus. You see them start doing that, but then that nonetheless informs how they actually look at themselves inwardly. And it's kind of this symbiotic relationship. And we see them go from these students who often don't have much direction or they don't know really what they want to do to students that it sparks them and it helps them finally tap into, oh, I don't have to be worried about what people think of me, or I don't, this isn't about me. This is about how I'm impacting other people. And that's a much more joyful and healthy place to be. I mean, there needs to be balance in all things. There is such thing as self care. I understand that as well, but it's it's really lovely to see that. And time again, we see students just find themselves and have a much more stable understanding of who they are and what they can offer to their local and international communities. And yeah, we're not actually a mental health nonprofit. We're not social workers or therapists, but we anecdotally, we see it absolutely for sure happening within our doors and within the individuals we work with for sure. It's
Absolutely.
very powerful for our students.
Well, I mean, just going out there and seeing it's a great big world. Like there's pressure taken off when you know it's not all about you. It's not just you out here. There's many moving parts. There's likely many humans out there experiencing something far harder and more difficult than whatever we're experiencing here in America. And that's not
Yep.
to say we don't have our problems and our issues because we do. It's just it I think that just again that perspective
Yeah.
allows you some space to be human and understand like okay there's a lot going on everywhere, we're all kind of in this together in some capacity. And even that, like the hard part of that is a great way to connect with people that aren't like you because you can see them going through similar things. I remember traveling to Japan to compete. I was a freshman going into my sophomore year and we traveled that summer. So the end of my freshman year, we traveled to Japan and we not only went there to compete and play lacrosse, but we stayed with Japanese families. And there was obviously a language barrier. They spoke a little bit of English and we spoke almost no Japanese. We did learn some out there and they were kids our age. So it was kind of cool for us, even language barrier, to see like some of the struggles. Like one of the nights, I think we stayed out a little bit late, and I was with a brother and a sister, and they're like, "Don't tell our parents," basically, because we stayed out late. And I'm like, "Oh my god, this is us!" Like we're all kind of in this on really like casual, silly things. We're in this shared like teen college experience where you're not yet kid or you're not kids, or you're not yet an adult. So it was really cool and heartwarming to be like, man, we're really similar. Even we can't even like verbally communicate. We totally had this empathy and like through looks and nonverbals of like we were in it with them. So it was really powerful to see how big the world was. And be humbled by so many things. And as an athlete, I always say I'm such an advocate of life skills through sports, because school wasn't like, I did school, I was here for it, was fine, got okay grades, but it was my motivation was to play lacrosse. But the life skills through sports and athletics, is particularly for my young women, has always been a major passion point for myself and my journey and my purpose. This I love because it's, boys, girls, non-binary children can come together and just relate over this human experience locally in your communities and then internationally. And you can learn all these life skills early on, including mental health. It's pretty magical what you pull from it.
Hi there. This is Laura Mahoney from Lux Neuro, Neurofeedback and Counseling. We are bringing you stories of transformation each podcast. Imagine how we can transform your life. Insomnia. I had not been sleeping well for months. My energy level was low. Small tasks felt incredibly challenging. Lack of quality of sleep was obviously impacting my relationships, my ability to be the mom I wanted to be, and my ability to concentrate at work. I didn't feel like myself at all. At that time, I was in talk therapy, and it really didn't seem to be doing much for me. Fortunately, I found neurofeedback, specifically Laura Mahoney, and after a few sessions, I started to see some light at the end of the tunnel. I started sleeping better, and life felt more enjoyable. I began feeling like my energetic self again. I am almost at the end of my neurofeedback protocol, and I am so grateful for Lux Neuro, as they have literally changed my life. While neurofeedback is quite an investment of time and money, it has been well worth it. Thank you, Lux Neuro and Laura Mahoney. You've changed my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's so many ways that you can develop those attitudes and those experiences. And I love, like what you described, I like to call sports diplomacy. I think it's a powerful way to bring people together. Obviously, the world is so bonded by sport.
Yeah.
Um, and it's such a powerful thing. And then, hey, how about service can be another one of those opportunities for them to also have some experiences like that. Not all
Yeah.
of us know how to do sports. That was me. I was awful at it.
That's okay. Well,
So
it's
thank
kind of
goodness there are other things too.
well, it's kind of the same thing. You're getting together with your like-minded human. You've got a goal at the end of it. So you're working together to facilitate, the process to complete that goal. It's really not any different. And I always say, like,
Yeah, exactly.
athletics, yeah, but theater, music, cooking, all those things, again, you're working with a group towards a common goal. That's enough. Like, you still get all those life skills in the mix. And it's not this direct, like, parent, coach, or teacher being like, learn how to grow up, learn this and that. Like, you're learning it in between. And that, I think, is the magic.
I agree. Absolutely.
Well, so tell us, no, we covered a couple of the programs. I know you guys have a lot going on. You don't have to break down each one, but is there anything else you want to highlight that you guys have going on that you offer the community?
Yeah, something we have going on that's actually not just for people in Utah is we have a trip that'll go next summer in June to Fiji. That's one of our main service sites. And we call it our friends and family trip. And we're really trying to allow individuals to be able to join in some kind of a program with us that don't have to be in Utah. And what makes our trip to Fiji quite unique, I think, from maybe potentially other trips that go abroad and do service is when we go and work internationally, Youthlinc doesn't have any offices abroad. We don't have employees abroad that are doing these things. We find pre-existing NGOs or non-government organizations in all of the countries that we go to that are already doing good work all the time. And then when we come with our group of people, we're like the vitamin B12 shot to their mission. And so with this, the work that we're doing in Fiji, it's ongoing work that's happening. And then when we bring our groups, we're plugging in to something that's bigger than us and bigger than we can accomplish on our own. And our partner in Fiji is actually the Ministry of Education. So we've been there long enough that we have approval from their federal government to be an official partner with their education ministry. So that gives us opportunity in a very meaningful way to interact with communities. And we all know, if we look around our communities, that schools are such a critical piece to a community. And so that we have access to work with schools and directly with faculty at schools to do professional developments and also do fun activities with the students. And then that gets us into the villages and we can work with the parents and the adults on different things. So anyone that joins with that program to Fiji from wherever they want, United States of America, We'll meet on Zoom. We'll get them prepared with the projects that they could be helping out with in Fiji, and then we'll all go have this amazing experience where we're working with the Ministry of Education and in some villages and doing great work. So that's something fun that's kind of outside
Yeah,
the Utah demographic.
that's incredible to be involved with the government and then help facilitating something positive. Does anyone want to run for office in this mix? Because this is what I feel like our government needs to be doing. I don't know the ins and outs fully of what's going on government wise, but this strategic partnerships and building again that team to work towards a
Yes.
common goal. Can we get that theme running all over the place? I'm just going to put this out to universe. I think that's incredible. And I was going to ask you, how do you guys find these leaders or communities? Because it's not just like you can throw a dart on the map and be like, let's help them. There's process and procedure to these things, and it's not
Yeah.
there's always politics and budget. Like there's always a complicated hoop to jump through to make this work, and it's hard to even give away money. Like there's always people don't understand the nonprofit world. It's a jungle out there, no pun intended, but it's really hard to make things move. How do you guys facilitate partners or programs or communities or countries that you want to work with?
Yeah, so internationally, I'll speak internationally. All of our partnerships kind of have their own fun story of how they came about. Um, But the basics of it are we will not go start doing any kind of work in another country unless we can find and identify a stable nonprofit organization in that country that's already doing great work, like I kind of alluded to with Fiji. Um, and when we find that potential partner, or maybe there's a few of them if we're trying to like expand to a certain country, and that's a whole other question of how we decide where to go.
Yeah.
But then an employee from Youthlinc goes and does a site visit, and we kind of start really caressing those partnerships and making sure those relationships are really good until we find one that we know that what we can bring to the table is really actually complementary to what they're already doing. And not every NGO is a good fit for us, and vice versa. But often that you finally find the one that you're really are going to be able to do some better good together. And then we start figuring out what projects we could do together. So they often have a list of things they're already working on, and we evaluate, okay, what can we bring to the table to support that? And once we know that's going to be solid, then we can start telling it to our world in Utah to say, hey, here's a new partnership and a new trip, a new country that you can go to. And then all the logistics are also a whole other category of things we have to figure out. But some of these connections come from someone comes to me and says, hey, Justin, I have a really great connection in Ecuador. Will you consider Ecuador? But to be honest, lots of people come to me all the time with potential connections, and I have to sit through them all.
Yeah.
So the other part of it is, where can we go internationally that would actually make sense for people to want to go? Because they're signing up. It's not like this is court ordered. They have to want to go to the countries we go to, and they have to feel, and they have to be safe. And we also take a lot of minors and through our program. And so there's a lot to consider in terms of when we decide where to go. But
Well, if
and,
there's
and yeah, I could write a blog post on each country
I,
about its story, but that's the basic.
I believe it. Well, and also, I mean, there's rules and logistics. Also, there's cultural and social norms. How do you guys manage coming into a new space where our culture and our beliefs or values or whatever are different, or just things that, so we're telling our young people, don't do this, it's offensive, do this, like here's expectations. How do you handle all that, like cultural coaching, I want to say?
Yeah. So in reference to our volunteers, our students and adults that go with us, a few years ago, we developed some modules online we call them the impact modules. And now all of our volunteers are required to do those modules, and they hit on some of those best practice things. Like we hit on uh, implicit bias and what do we naturally just think we understand about our world, and we just want people to check in on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have one that has to do with intent versus impact, because we all know as we're like adults, we come to understand the nuance of just because I intended something that's not necessarily how it was received. So we actually need to shift our mind to be more looking at what is my impact really doing here, and irregardless of my intention. And when we're looking at our partners abroad, we have to develop that really strong relationship of trust that we know that our impact is actually what they want. Because like the big thing is a lot of the places we go, they want to be good hosts to us.
Totally.
They want us to feel good, and if they think that we want to do a project really badly and that's going to make us happy, sometimes they'll say, sure, do it. That's fine. But then, heaven forbid, down the road, you find out they only said yes because they were trying to be a good host.
Right.
So you have to have this really trusting place where they can be really honest to say, actually, did you know that project's not that effective? Oh, thank you for telling us what would be more effective. And it's always this give and take, and it's always this really checking in and being really honest and open and centering our partners so that we can do what's best practice. 20 years ago, what Youthlinc did is not what Youthlinc does now, because we've learned how to do it better and better and better.
Sure.
And that's a common misconception when people look at organizations that do international development work is, oh, you're like white saviors, or oh, you're colonialists. And sure, like there could be some traps that you fall into that would be those things. But hey, did you know you can actually also do it correctly? And, the ways to do it correctly are through partnership and through listening and through centering our partner to be in the driver's seat. We are, like I said, the vitamin B12 shot. And we also are very clear with our student volunteers of that process so that they can also start developing those attitudes and mindsets so they're not just accidentally perpetuating something that's not actually great.
Right, right. Well, and
Yeah,
that in itself is still a growing conversation that's kind of wild today that, because of 2020 and George Floyd and some of these major milestones that have awakened a lot of people to things that, we were unconscious bias around many things. And again, you just don't know what you don't know. So that's wonderful that
yeah,
you guys are facilitating that conversation and that awareness. And that's incredible because it starts early for your young humans. Obviously, I'm assuming your volunteers are over 18, but if kiddos are starting to see this conversation or hear this conversation and then go see it in real life, that changes the
yeah,
trajectory on so many levels and facilitating a perspective that we didn't have as kids. Like there really wasn't that
yeah,
viewpoint and there was no TikTok or any of these things that we could even like kind of dig into. So I think that's wouldn't even know how you measure that kind of success or you track it, but there has to be waves of change as you see these young humans grow up with such a different widened perspective and empathy on a level that was much deeper than what we had the capacity of because we just didn't know as young people for our
yeah.
generation.
You're exactly right, and we figure this out because we do a lot of qualitative data
Okay.
gathering. It's not always so easy when it's like a multiple choice test, and that gives you certain data, but our data has to be very qualitative, and then that does inform our practice a lot. And something I love about the younger generation is because they are exposed to these types of ideas and concepts much younger, and a lot of it is because of social media. They're bringing to the conversation these hard questions, whereas 10 years ago they didn't, and nobody asked about how is this best practice. They just trusted and they did it. But now they're asking, and I love that they're asking because guess what? We actually do care about this internally, and now
Yeah.
you're actually asking us to explain like how this works. Oh, happy day. Let's have this greater conversation with you. And then the more people that are thinking about that, the better you can actually innovate because they're bringing their creative solutions to the table at a much higher rate than they used to. And so I love that about this generation that they are asking those really great questions. It just makes us better.
Heck yeah. Our young humans know what's up. They're connected. They're
We
dialed in.
do.
If the information's at their fingertips 24/7 and they're conscious consumers. I say this with
Mhm.
brands. I'm a marketing background. I'm like, our young people know. Like you're not dealing with the average bear from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Like these guys grew up with this stuff and they know how to pick and choose and ask questions. It's
Yeah.
pretty amazing with the power of what they're doing and the direction that they're moving. And I love to hear that your business and your agenda is continuing to evolve. I think that in itself
Yeah.
is an incredible model influencer leader in itself because it's showing that, yeah, you're one way today and you're a different way tomorrow. And the point is this continuous evolution of listening and adapting and then going one step further to partner with programs or local situations that are already doing it well. You don't need to recreate the wheel. There's no ego in this. You can come in and align alongside something that's already moving in a certain direction. I think businesses always want to come in and blaze trail and make it different and do all the things. And that's not always appropriate. And also, you don't need to do that. Save time, energy, and resource.
Exactly. I love being in the nonprofit space because I love that we can more effectively live the collaboration is more important than competition.
Yes.
And that's such a beautiful space to be in. And, not every nonprofit's immune to falling into that competition trap, but we really try to stay very much as we're collaborators, locally and internationally, because just like you said so well, wow, you can just be so much more productive and effective if you're not trying to recreate the wheel.
Yeah. And I wish our for-profit situations would listen to that. As an athlete, the best thing you want to do is go train with athletes that are better than you. Watch how they train, watch what they do, work with them, see what they do, adjust it for yourself. Obviously there's certain, if Nike and Reebok aren't going to get in a room and tell each other their secrets, but I guarantee you they're watching what the other one's doing and they're keeping each other ahead of the game and keeping everything elevating and moving. Like, you want competition in the room. So I wish our for-profits took more notes of that, because there is space, especially the lower levels, to work with your competitor, figure it out, and do it better collectively. One can specialize in this, one can specialize in that, and we can figure it out. And that can turn into a government conversation real quick. We won't navigate down that rabbit hole, but it's beautiful that our young people get to see this earlier, and then you see these skills come through in what you're doing, but then it goes and happens in their families, in their social structure, in their gym. It's really, really wild.
Absolutely. And I see that happen. These youth really do. They get it. We joke in Youthlinc, we don't just create lifetime humanitarians, but we change your major.
Hey.
And even if they're not changing their major completely, they're actually approaching their major differently. Like, they can still be going into business, but maybe they're going to be more mindful of collaboration opportunities and solving community problems with business rather than exploiting people for profit.
Yes.
There's some simple mind shifts that you can really adopt that might actually make the world a better place. What a novel concept.
Well, it sounds kind of woo and warm-hearted or liberal or whatever, but if you ask like doctors, lawyers, and these traditional positions, if you said, why did you do this? Most of them will say, because I wanted to help people, or some version of that. I really do believe in the good of humans and humanity, and especially our young people, because they do want to be productive. They do want to help. And it might not look like through a lawyer or a doctor or what have you. I mean, podcasting wasn't a thing when I was a kiddo, so I wouldn't have said that, but this is, kind of this creative journey that kind of fulfills my role in servicing and showing up for this world. But finding that path of contributing and contribution and being a part of a like-minded community, if you can awaken that light bulb earlier and save yourself, what is it, 40 grand a year to go to college nowadays? Like, figure that out earlier on, for yourself, for the community and the greater good, but also for you, so you can be that productive, mission, heart space aligned human at 20 something versus 40 something, and figure it out. Did you take some time yourself to figure out your path and wind and weave?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was very programmed from my upbringing to, here's the formula you follow. I'm a millennial. We were all told this is the formula to follow to have the baby boomers outcomes. We all know as millennials, that's not how it worked out. So I followed the formula and it wasn't really working for me. Like, I graduated from college post 9/11 and right before the economic collapse. Like, those opportunities weren't there. But what I loved is that this journey, that journey took a long time. I graduated with an international business degree, and I thought I would go do international business. Then I worked for a trucking company, and I actually knew I wanted to be a teacher. And then I moved abroad and taught English for a year abroad in Korea and Vietnam. And then I moved home, and my wife and I, we had been dating on and off for a long time. We finally got married, and she's like, just go be a teacher. You will love it so much, and we'll figure it out. I know it's not a high-paying job, but we'll figure it out. I became a teacher. I went back for my English degree and my master's of education, and bim, bam, boom. Now I run an international nonprofit that's youth development. So you put international business together with teaching. It sounds like a no-brainer, but there was a solid 8 to 10 years of I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah. Well, that's
works
everybody.
out.
Totally.
Yeah, it's everybody. Exactly. That's what I try to tell students, because a lot of them will ask me, like, how do I get to where you are or whatever? I'm like, well, you just got to follow your heart and just enjoy the journey. All these cliche things that are actually true. And at
Yeah.
some point, you're going to look back and say, oh, that whole journey was the awesome thing. There's no such thing as the final destination. Everything's a process.
Totally. We're getting old and we're saying all these things like in
I know.
unison, but it's the truth. And I
I
remember a
know.
young person, they're like, "Yeah, chase your dreams, do this." I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna do that, but who's paying for it? Who do I know? Who do I got to call? I'm down with the work. That's not the problem. I'll stay up late, read more, train harder. I'll do all that. But how do I get from A to B?" And the point is you actually have to go out there and fail and do all these weird
Yeah.
experiences so you can learn about you. And if you can take this trip and see society at a level, I can see how one trip can quarantine 20 years or let's say 10 years of experience into like that 1 year for that kiddo to learn so much about themselves.
Yeah.
And I think really just have the light bulb come on of like, oh, you know what? I actually do care about this world and I want to contribute. And I think if you
Mhm.
could just figure that out earlier, that's enough. Like that will help streamline some of this other stuff.
Yep. And our program really can be a part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know sometimes it's bigger than that, but it can definitely be a catalyst for figuring that out.
For sure. Well, in this world, you never know what young human comes through your program and they align with a certain country and maybe they get to like a government level and they start facilitating incredible international policy. Like you don't know where this really goes or
Yeah.
tracks. Have you guys had, I mean, now that it's been so many years, have you seen any of your humans get into political or UN or anything like that where it's larger scale impact?
Yeah. I mean, there's no one that's like famous,
Okay, well,
but
that's probably good.
But yes, absolutely. There are so many students over the years that, yeah, they've gone into either it's into government or into politics, or they're running a business, but they're running it with a different attitude in mind. And or they've gone into a law, but now the area of law that they've chosen has to do more with something that's more human based and taking care of people's based or so yes, absolutely, we see that all the time. And even now, I get parents that still are like long-term donors for the last 15 years, and they're like, "You just changed my kid's life 15 years ago, and now they're a doctor and they chose to go into this blah blah blah, blah because of YouthLink, because you got them involved in doing service, and that just made them understand that connection and people and taking care of human beings is more important than the normal rubric they might have assumed your stock portfolio or your house has to be 7,000 square feet or whatever their rubric was. It's just
Mhm.
it changes it. And yes, absolutely, it's happening all over the place.
Well, and famous is great, or you're the president or the leader of the UN, but really go be a different, more intentional parent, coach, leader, communities. You
Exactly.
don't need the big title. It's just the daily actions that are actually
Yeah.
really facilitating the tidal wave of positive change versus, this big megaphone or bright light. I'm here for all
Mhm.
that. But it's that daily stuff that where you change, we all wipe off our doormat and take care of that. That's where we see like communal change and taking care of yourself. So I think you guys are facilitating all these little influencers. Probably more
It's
than you know.
tons of grassroots stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
grassroots change happening all over the place.
yeah. Well, I wanna touch really quick because we do have a lot of entrepreneurs and business humans that tune in. How are you
Mhm.
guys so good at the business? Do we have, like, intentional business degrees in the mix? Like, because 'cause you're buying the building and that we on our initial call, I'm like, "Man, that's like generational wealth. That changes the game." Who is facilitating this business convo? Because that's a huge piece of it in the nonprofit world. People sleep on that, and it's a big piece of the game.
Well, a big part of it I haven't mentioned is I have a board of directors, and the board is a lot. They're very involved in the strategic future of where YouthLink wants to go. So it really comes from having really excellent board members that not only care deeply about our mission and wanting it to perpetuate because it does so much good, but lending their brains and their skills and their experiences to us as we make decisions on how to move forward. And
Yeah.
that dates back so long ago. I remember Judy giving me the lore of YouthLink of like, oh, way back in the day, the board wanted to do this. And they were like, yeah, we actually do want to start building like a tiny reserve fund just because any business should have one. So they started building a reserve fund. And you know what? 20 years later, that helped us live through a pandemic and not only live, but we're like fine,
Yeah.
and it's just like little things like that. It's really the board that makes really good strategic choices um, in terms of how they guide those decisions to be made. So the board is fantastic. So anyone that's listening that's in that world, join a board.
Yeah.
Go lend yourself to a nonprofit that I'm telling you right now as executive director, I have about 50 job descriptions and I can't possibly be perfectly awesome at everything. And so when I have a good board member come in that can really help me understand certain things that I just no one person can know everything, they are worth their weight in gold. And so
Amen.
go be that person for a nonprofit, even at a board level. That would be a major bonus for somebody.
I love it. Well, attitude reflects leadership. That's like the main thing I tell to all my young humans, but anyone listening, public speaking, that's like my one takeaway. And you guys are quite literally modeling what you're going out into the world and doing. You're facilitating good humans with like-minded energy. There's accountability, there's checks and balances, and then you go out in the world and you align along, countries with established organizations and like-minded. Like it's all kind of the same thing. So you're talking the talk and walking the walk. And I think that says a lot in this day and age. Not only what you're doing, but how you're doing it. Because again, our young humans can get behind the mirrors and the shadows and say, okay, what's really going on here? Not every nonprofit's like that. There's a lot of gray area out there, and then there's a lack of transparency, ironically and unfortunately, in this world. So I think when you do have those, strong leaders up front, and then that leadership and that intentionality and that kindness and strategy and teamwork, it all comes down from the top. So y'all are doing something right.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate you recognizing that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've done some work in the nonprofit space, so we know, and being, a business-minded human, you got to make the balance alive and well.
Yeah, you do.
I could ask you a million more things, but I want to encourage people to go out there and check out what you guys have going on, because there's so many moving parts. It's an incredible group of humans doing incredible things. So if you can find not only, someone in America that you're like, and then they can take you internationally and find like-minded humans there, it changes the game for all of us. So tell us where we find you, handles, websites, anything you want to share.
Yeah, so we are on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and that's just Youthlinc, and it's spelled Youthlinc at the end, not with a K, because that used to mean we were linking the local and international needs communities.
Hey.
That's the LINC, just for funsies, so you know why we can't spell. And then our website is youthlinc.org, so pretty simple. You can find lots of information in all of those different places. And then if anyone listening out there wants to join us in Fiji, go to youthlinc.org and you'll see a link to the Fiji Friends and Family
Boom.
group. So you can register for that.
Go check them out. There's so many incredible things. Justin, I really appreciate your time and energy and what you're doing and your authentic passion for the greater good and all the cliches, because I'm right there with you. It's so real. And the older we get, the more we know it's true. But also, what a beautiful thing to like be valid and feel validated in following your heart. Like, as cheesy as that is, it's really, really cool to live that and be able to have conversations like this and, and just get excited about doing good things. Like, life doesn't need to be that complicated. So I appreciate all the good stuff going on. I if I'm in Utah, I'll come try and pull up or do something. I know you all are busy humans, but I'd love to see the new building and just shake hands and give hugs and we'll see
absolutely.
what else.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for having me on your podcast and helping us spread the good word.
Absolutely. We appreciate it. Go check them out. I want to give a nice shout out to our sponsors. Thank you to Lux Neuro, Neurofeedback and Counseling. Lux Neuro wants to meet you. If you are ready to transform your life, visit them at luxneuro.com to schedule a consultation. Justin, we'll see you at something soon. I wish you guys all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.